All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. And let me tell you, today's a good one, October 15th. Not exactly a date that screams history, right?
Right.
But as we're about to find out, it's a date that's seen its fair share of intrigue, espionage, even a bit of calendar chaos.
It's true. It's remarkable how much history can unfold in a single day, and October 15th is no exception.
No exception at all. So let's not waste any time. Our first story takes us back to 1917. Europe's in the grip of World War I, and we're stepping into a Parisian nightclub. Picture this. The stage lights are low, the music's smoky, and all eyes are on Mata Hari, the most captivating exotic dancer of her time. But Mata Hari's life off the stage was even more intriguing than her performances, wasn't it?
It really was. Her real name was actually Margaretha Zelle, and she completely invented this whole persona, this Mata Hari, this mysterious, alluring figure. But as captivating as her dances were, it's the allegations of espionage, the accusations of being a double agent that truly captured the world's imagination and ultimately led to her downfall.
Accused of spying for both the French and the Germans. Talk about playing both sides. It's a story that's captivated historians for over a century.
It's a story that asks more questions than it answers in a way. Was she truly a master manipulator? Or was she, as some historians now argue, a scapegoat, a victim of circumstance used by the French to cover up their own intelligence failures?
A story of intrigue and espionage set against the backdrop of World War I. What do you think? Spy or scapegoat?
Oh.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Now, before the break, we were talking about Mata Hari, a story of espionage and intrigue. But for our next October 15th event, we're shifting gears completely.
Yeah, from the glamorous world of Parisian nightclubs to something, well, a little more down to earth, shall we say.
That's an understatement. This time we're talking about calendar.
Calendars, not exactly the stuff of spy novels, but trust me, this is a story with its own share of twists, turns, and historical drama.
I'll bite. What could possibly be so dramatic about calendars? Well, just imagine this. It's 1582. You're living your life. It's October 4th. You go to bed like any other night, and when you wake up, it's October 15th.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me people just lost 10 days?
Exactly. That's precisely what happened when Pope Gregory III introduced the Gregorian calendar, which, as you might have guessed, is the very same calendar we still use today.
The same calendar we use? Wow. I never knew it had such a strange beginning. So what was the reasoning behind this 10-day disappearing act? It sounds like something out of a magic show.
Well, it all boils down to a slight miscalculation. See, the old Julian calendar, the one they were using before, had a tiny error when it came to calculating the length of a solar year.
A tiny error? How tiny are we talking?
Think minutes. They were off by just a matter of minutes each year. But those minutes, they added up over centuries, and by the 16th century, things were out of sync by a whole 10 days.
Minutes matter. Who knew? But 10 days, that's huge. What kind of impact did that have on people back then?
It caused quite the stir. Think about it. Contracts, financial agreements, even birthdays, everything was suddenly off by 10 days. People were understandably confused and more than a little frustrated. There were riots, disputes, even debates about whether their wages should be adjusted because of the missing days.
Wow, can you imagine?
Yeah.
I know I owe you for 10 more days of work, but those days technically didn't even exist. Talk about a headache.
It was a logistical nightmare, to say the least. But beyond the immediate chaos, the calendar change also had lasting implications for how history unfolded, especially when it came to different branches of Christianity.
Oh, how so?
Well, not everyone was thrilled about taking orders from the Pope. Protestant and Orthodox communities were hesitant to adopt a calendar spearheaded by the Catholic Church. This led to a fascinating and messy situation where different parts of the world adopted the Gregorian calendar at different times.
So for centuries, people were running around in different calendars. That's wild.
It really is. And it wasn't just a European affair either. Even the American colonies, which were still under British rule at the time, they didn't adopt the Gregorian calendar until 1752, almost 200 years after it was first implemented.
See, what I tell you, calendars are way more interesting than they get credit for. It's amazing how something we take for granted today has such a wild history. But speaking of wild histories, our next stop on this October 15th journey is a doozy. We're leaving the world of calendars behind and stepping into, well, the downfall of an emperor's downfall. You're probably thinking of Napoleon Bonaparte, right?
You'd be right. After his crushing defeat at Waterloo in 1815, Napoleon's story didn't exactly end. It just took a, well, shall we say, a remote turn.
Remote is one word for it. From Emperor of France to exile on a tiny island in the middle of the South Atlantic.
St. Helena. Over 1,200 miles from the nearest landmass. Talk about social distancing.
The British weren't taking any chances, were they?
Not a single one. Exile on St. Helena, it was designed to be inescapable, and for Napoleon, it was a far cry from the halls of power he was used to.
So what was life like for Napoleon in exile? Did he spend his days lounging on the beach, sipping tropical drinks?
Not quite. He was confined to Longwood House, which sounds grand, but in reality was damp, rat-infested, and generally unpleasant. Napoleon himself complained endlessly about the living conditions.
It was more like house arrest than a relaxing retirement. So how did he fill his day? I can't imagine someone like Napoleon just sitting around twiddling his thumbs.
Oh, he found ways to keep himself busy. He started dictating his memoirs, for one, meticulously documenting his rise and fall, his victories and defeats.
Trying to control the narrative, even in exile. Classic Napoleon.
Exactly. He also got into gardening, apparently finding some solace in nature after years of military campaigns.
Conquering Europe to tending tomatoes. Quite the career change.
You know, it's easy to think of these historical figures as larger than life, but Napoleon's exile reminds us that even emperors are human. They experience defeat, they grapple with limitations, and they even find unexpected hobbies in unexpected places.
It's a good reminder that history isn't just about the big battles and the famous speeches. It's also about the quiet moments, the personal struggles, the things that make these figures relatable even centuries later. But speaking of relatable, let's bring it back to today. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Espionage, calendar, chaos, exile. What are some of the bigger takeaways here?
Well, one thing that stands out to me is the sheer variety of ways that history unfolds. You have these grand forces at play like war and political intrigue, but you also have these seemingly small events, a miscalculated calendar, for example, that can have a ripple effect for centuries.
It's almost like a domino effect, isn't it? One thing leads to another, which leads to another, and before you know it, the world is a completely different place.
Exactly. And then there's the question of legacy. What will we be remembered for? What stories will people tell about us centuries from now?
It's a humbling thought, isn't it? But it's also a reminder that we have the power to shape our own narratives, to leave our mark on the world, even in small ways. And who knows, maybe centuries from now, someone will be sitting here talking about our lives on a podcast just like this.
Maybe they will. But until then, I think that's our cue to wrap things up.
I think you're right. So from Mata Hari's captivating dances to the Gregorian calendar's 10-day time jump and Napoleon's quiet exile on St. Helena, we've explored 3 incredible stories, all connected by this point, October 15th.
It just goes to show that history is anything but boring. There's always something new to discover, a new story to uncover.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep digging deeper into the past. Because the more we understand history, the more we understand ourselves. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Smash that like button.
Please subscribe. Thanks for tuning in to
HistorianKid podcast channel.
Catchy. We hope you enjoyed this dive into history. If you did, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating